stop playing small, how to stop letting your past dictate your future in business, in life, and wherever you are. That's what we're talking about today. If you're brand new to me, my name is Susan McVeigh, and I am a married mama of two and a business sales and wealth strategist. And here on this channel, we talk about all things business and entrepreneurship, which includes money and sales with faith and family thrown in the mix. And today's video is all about playing small and why I don't want you to play small. And I'm going to be sharing from my own personal experience of what this has looked like in my life, in my business, in terms of my clients and the work that I've done with them. So before I begin, I'm going to pray because I feel led to do so, but also most people in the world need a little bit more hope, love, joy, and faith. So we're going to start with prayer. We're going to start with prayer every single video, just as an FYI. So Father, we just come to you in the name of your Son, Jesus. And I just ask that whoever needs to hear this video, whoever needs to hear these words, that this message goes out loud and clear, like an arrow being shot, that it will hit the bullseye for whoever needs to hear and see and receive this, that it be the very thing that they're looking for, whether it's a confirmation or a spark or just some encouragement and empowerment to help them as they go through this journey called life. And so I just thank you for this time. I thank you for this moment. I thank you that you're allowing me to be a vessel to be used for these words in Jesus' mighty name. Amen. Okay. So what does it mean to play small, right? What does it mean to play small? So I'm going to define it first, right? And what it looks like as it relates to my own personal experience. Now, you may have a different definition, and it's totally fine, but I want you to just consider for yourself, especially if you are on this video, whether you're watching on the replay or on the live, that you define for yourself what it looks like for you to play small, because I think it's really important that we first identify what does it look like, what does it feel like, when does it come up, so that you can recognize it and then you can address it. Because if we're not aware of something, it makes it very difficult for us to then do something about it, okay? So what does it mean to play small? Again, this is my definition. I want you to consider what it looks like for you and how you would define it as well. So number one, for me, it means that I don't allow myself to go for it. Hello, Ravi, welcome, right? And so that means that when I want to do something, I hold myself back. I don't fully let go, that I almost limit what's available for me, right? That I already decide what the outcome's gonna look like before I even begin. That's what looking small looks like for me, right? So again, as I'm speaking this out loud, I want to encourage you to jot down some thoughts, write it down, and start thinking about what does playing small look like for you, right? Because it's a personal experience. And so I can share my own personal experience, and it might spark some ideas for you, but how it plays out in your life, in your business, in your relationships, in your health, wherever it is that you feel like you're playing small right now. But for the purpose of today's video, I did label this for business because that's who I mostly work with, our business owners. So I want you to think, where are you limiting yourself? Where are you already predetermining what is possible and the outcomes? Hello, Linda. Okay. Hello, Zingus. Again, for me, it's when I don't allow myself to just go for something, that I only take a sure bet. Now, I'm not talking about, being ridiculously risk-taking, right? I love risk as much as the next person. I believe that in business, you have to be willing to take a lot of risks because the definition of being a business owner is inherently risky, right? But at the same time, we don't want to be stupid about it, right? But what that also means is that for me personally, I have limited myself in areas where I have felt like if that doesn't work out how I want, if that's not going to be something that is going to be successful enough, if that's not going to be worthwhile, right? And there's different parameters that I use to make these decisions, but it's always with a comparison to what I've done before, what's happened before. Now, I've talked ad nauseum on this channel about the fact that when we start bringing in the past into the present, it can dictate our future. And so if you want a future version of life, of business, of wealth, of health, of whatever it is that you desire, and that future vision doesn't look the same as what you're experiencing today, then that's probably the biggest mistake that we can make that limits our abilities and keeps us playing in the sandbox, that makes us play in these small, small circles that then we wonder, why am I just repeating the same thing over and over again? Like, why does it feel like Groundhog's Day? Well, chances are it's because even though you're setting really big targets and goals, that there's a part of you that is limiting your availability, that is only participating when it feels like, you know what, I think I can succeed at this. Now, I'm all for setting yourself up for success. But at the same time, if you're being challenged and stretched and really growing into the fullest version of who you were created to be, just by nature of that, it means that the things that we desire to be, do, and have are automatically going to be outside of this bubble called comfort, right? And so if we feel like we're the big fish in a small pond all the time, then there's a very high likelihood that we're not actually stretching and growing, and that we're containing ourselves to an extent simply because it feels safe to do so. Now, that may or may not be true, right? Because that's just our perception of reality. So, and I'm looking down here because I want to make sure that I keep on track with my notes. So for me, again, it means that I don't give myself permission to fully go for something, that I limit what is available, that I put some parameters and guidelines around, like boundaries, which are great in some respect, but in this particular instance, it is very limiting because I have already prejudged and preconditioned myself to only be available to receive and accept a certain amount. And then I'm like, okay, that's good enough. Well, that's good, right? What it does is it's limited what actually is available by saying, no, no, thank you. Like that's what I've decided I'm okay with. And then the rest, even if it was more and more and more and more, is not something that I'm willing to entertain. It's not something that I am available for. So then I end up playing much smaller than the potential that I actually have, the capabilities, even my capacity, right? I allow other people to, and their judgments, their opinions, which I talked about. If you're struggling with people's opinions, go and watch the video that's here on this channel. You're going to see it in the title. It's about don't let other people's opinions. That's like, search for it and you'll find that one. Go and watch that because that will be helpful for you. So the other thing that, especially for women, often happens is we take up less space or we make less noise, simply because a lot of times as kids, we're told, be quiet, right? Like, go in the corner, don't be spoken to unless you're first spoken to. That people who are older, people who are in more powerful positions, people who are men, unfortunately, but that's the dichotomy of our society, has been built off of a very patriarchal model, which I'm married. I'm all for empowering men and empowering women, but at the same time, it's been a little bit lopsided in the way that we teach our children, the way that we're taught. And so as a result, it means that for women in particular, and maybe for some sensitive men, that if you've been told those messages over and over again, guess what happens? We believe them, right? We believe them. In the Bible, it says faith comes by hearing. Now, if you are a believer, faith comes by hearing the word of God, but it still works. The things that we give faith to, it still works by how we hear. So whatever it is that you hear the most of, you're going to have beliefs around. So if you keep hearing that your voice doesn't matter, that you don't have anything to say, that your opinion doesn't count, right? If you're told to be quiet over and over and over again, well, guess what you're going to believe? You're going to believe that your voice does not matter, that your opinion doesn't count, that your voice doesn't need to be heard, that the things that you have inside of you aren't really valuable or worthy enough for somebody to even listen to you. So, of course, when you start showing your voice and shouting out your message, when you start showing up, when you are creating a business or a personal brand that's based off of you and your ideas and your expertise and your wisdom, of course, this is going to be uncomfortable. And of course, it's going to challenge the fabric and the nature of who you are. And it's going to make you want to sometimes shrink, run, hide, scream, do all the things, and not necessarily want to be fully expressed and not want to show up as all parts of you and not want to own all the things that you are. That's been my experience, the experience of a lot of my clients. So the first part of this I had asked, and if you joined late, I'm going to do a quick recap here. Hello, Cool Gaku. I want you to define, what does playing small look like for you? You can use some of my examples. You can use some of my experiences because maybe they resonate with you. Chances are very high because I believe that life is a mirror and that everything is a teacher. Even my dog, right? Even the stranger on the street, even when my kids were 2 and 3, even 6 months, they were mirroring and reflecting back to me the greatest lessons that were like right there staring at me in the face. It was just a matter of whether or not I was willing to entertain. Am I willing to learn from this and grow, or am I going to run and hide, right? On Friday, I had a very big moment where I was being triggered. And if you were on here, Cool Goku was on here with me. I so appreciate you. But I was triggered. And I will tell you, I was ashamed of my behavior at the end, but I couldn't stop myself. And I'm going to share the lessons of that another day. But the reason why I'm sharing this is because it instantly made me want to play small. Now, in the moment, I was rising, but I was rising from a negative place, not from a powerful place. It looked powerful maybe, but it was not. It was the smallest part of me coming out and being like, we want to be heard, please pay attention, right? That was not the right way for me to have handled myself. And so if you were on here, if you were subjected to that, I apologize. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to everybody, right? But that being said, the reason why I share that is because we have to be able to own all the parts of us. Yes, even the parts that are small or don't get enough attention. And so because they don't get enough attention, they force us to run and hide, right? And so the question then becomes, when you find yourself playing small, and whatever that definition is for you, right? This is why it needs to be personalized for you. I can't do that for you. You have to do that work yourself. The reason why we do that is so that we can recognize when these patterns occur so that we can break them. Because if you don't have an awareness of them, you're going to just go around with this like hidden tape of the world is against me. I don't know what happens, but it just keeps doing the same old, same old. And it's like, well, at some point we got to recognize if there's different players in this movie, if there's a different story that you're encountering, and yet it's playing out to the same result, friend, the common denominator, it's me, right? Hello, it's me. I'm the issue. And so I just encourage all of us to take ownership and personal responsibility, because when you do that, then your life will unfold in a very different, more miraculous way, not because of the power of you, but because there's power inside of you. And I firmly believe that God deposits that power for us so that we can leverage that and use that for more good, right? Because those are the people that I'm here to serve, is good, kind-hearted people who have a mission and a purpose and a big vision, a vision that's bigger than you, and a vision that should scare you. I actually wrote out a whole post in conjunction with this on my Apple Notes app. Side note, if anybody knows how to fix that, because somehow when I went to go live, it deleted that note, which was a post I wanted to put. I can't find it. Like I can't recover it, which I know better. I know better, but I like the convenience of my Apple Notes app. Android users, please don't come at me because I'm not switching out of the ecosystem. Okay, so first you define it. What does playing small look like for you? Because once you know what it looks like, then you can identify when do you play small, right? What does it look like? And then when? When do you play small? Are there certain people that you play small around? Are there certain opportunities that make it harder for you to actually step up? Are there places where you go, like physical places? Maybe it's a store, right? The first time that I went into a really high end, and I mean for me, okay? This was back in my 20s. And the first time that I went into like a luxury store, I felt nervous and I felt very out of place. I didn't really know what to make of myself. And that was all on me, right? But there's also times where when I've entered into car dealerships or different places of business and people ignore me because of the way that I look, because I'm 5'2" in real life. Okay, I know that you can't tell. I know you can't tell on video, and oftentimes when clients meet me, they're like, wow, like I thought you were much bigger in real life because just the way that I come across, whatever. And I always joke and I say I live life large. And I do, because I believe that there is no limit. There is no limitation except for the limits that we place on ourselves, which is why I'm doing today's video. My husband, for the record, is 6'2", right? So I live life according to a bigger persona because why not? Why not, right? I used to climb the walls as a kid, like literally climb the walls as a kid. So I want you to believe bigger for yourself. And I want you to stop placing limitations and to understand that when you walk through places, when you look at things, it's not your responsibility and it's not your job to change somebody's viewpoint of you, right? They're going to have their opinion anyways. My husband likes to say everybody has an opinion and a a-hole. That's okay. Dudes. Anyways, maybe just my dude. Just like you can't change the fact that they have a part of their body that they go poop out of, you aren't going to have the power to say you don't get to have an opinion. They're going to have an opinion regardless. So who cares, right? The point is, what is your opinion of you? And how are you going to allow that to move you forward in the direction that you want to go and not to negate your own abilities, experiences, goals, dreams, and desires, right? Because then you're giving the power, your own power, away to somebody else. I would hate for that to happen. Unless you think that that's what I did because I haven't been on here live since Friday, I have still honored my commitment to create daily content. And it just happens to have been live, but over on Instagram. Okay. So that I could honor my word and still show up. Was it a version of playing small? Yes. I'll be the first to admit. Because I was processing, right? I still had to deal with the stuff that I was being forced to deal with and learning. And while I was processing it, I still had to honor my truth, my experiences, and my process, my experience and my journey. But I wasn't going to go and dig into the wound while it pour salt on it. You know what I mean? I'm not that crazy. But I made a commitment to myself. And the easiest way for me to show up for me is to honor my commitment. And that means that I had to do it in a way that felt light and easy. Pre-recorded video, I did a couple, but honestly, just hitting go live is the easiest for me. It still creates heart palpitations. Like that's why I scheduled today, right? Because I had to give myself a little bit of, okay, I'm going to do this. Let me make baby steps because it felt all of a sudden really, really big. Every time I go live, it still makes me somewhat nervous. I'm like 1,000 pieces of content at least over the course of my online career. So I just want you to know, because sometimes you see people and you're like, well, Susan, you've been speaking the blah, 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 blah. Yes, and I'm still human. I'm still human. I'm still a human who has feelings, who still reacts, who still has a nervous system, who still has like several health things that I have been healed of by God's grace, but it's still a process. It's still life that I need to live. Okay? So for you, where do you play small? Where are your triggers? Where do you notice that instead of rising up to meet the standard and the new level or the opportunity, that you shrink away? You want to run, you want to hide, maybe you want to sleep, right? Just notice these patterns of what it is that you do, what it is that you say, what it is that you think, right? Because our thoughts repeated will become our beliefs. So once you have that in mind, I want you to start thinking, because once you know what your playing small looks like, and you know when you do this, what are the triggers, I want you to think about what is the reaction, right? Now that might be all wrapped together, that's okay, but I want you to just create some awareness, because what you shine a light on can no longer be hidden in the dark. And the things, just like when we're little, if it's hidden in the dark and you don't know what it is, it's a lot scarier than just looking at it in the light of day and saying, you know what, it's not that bad. It's not that big of a deal. It's okay, right? Me going on here, I know that no matter what, someone's gonna hate me. Someone's gonna say something. Someone's going to heckle. Someone's going to be a naysayer. Someone's going to challenge my own experience and try to invalidate that, right? I lived through it. Let me tell you, there's no way that anybody can invalidate my truth, because it's what I experienced. You might not agree with my version, and that's your entitlement, right? Like, that's your opinion. You're entitled to that. But I don't have to accept it. I don't have to come into agreement with it. I can literally say, no, thank you, rebuke it, refuse it, renounce, denounce. I'm not coming into agreement with the lies that the enemy tries to place on me, simply because it makes him bigger and me smaller, right? In the past, I would have, because I didn't want to rock the boat. I didn't want to make other people uncomfortable. I was willing to swallow my truth and wanting to speak. And it doesn't mean that I have to speak out. It means that I allow those people, whoever they are, to have their own opinion, to have their own truth, and I don't need to fight them. I don't really need to acknowledge them. I don't really need to say anything, because it's not going to change their opinion of me, more often than not, right? So, number one, what helped me and what might help you is to remember faith over fear. That every time that we want to shrink, it is coming from a place of contraction, of being small. Usually that is grounded in fear. It is never, ever, ever, for me, and maybe for you, grounded in a place of faith, in a place of hope, in a place of desire, in a place of anticipation or expectations of a greater future. And so for me, that means that God is not in it. Okay? Now, what I want you to remember is that fear is not something that we fight against here on this plane, and it's also a human emotion. So as a human, you're going to feel fear, but you get to decide, am I going to hold on to it and grip it so tightly because it's like a security blanket, it's like my protective armor, or do I choose to let go of it? Now, the Bible says that a perfect love casts out all fear, right? Human beings often give imperfect love because we are imperfect beings. We're constantly trying to evolve and get better and better, but the reality is that we are not perfect in and of themselves, right? So I am only made perfect through Christ Jesus. So because of that, I receive love from God that is unconditional. So anytime that I feel like I have missed the mark, then I go to God to say, God, you need to remind me why you created me, who I am to you. And he will reveal that truth to you, right? And when he does, man, it's really hard. It's really hard to come out of a conversation with God when you're asking about, like, how do you see me? To not feel pumped and jazzed and like alive, your most alive self. Try it, right? You don't have to believe me. I just encourage you to try it, right? And at the end of the day, the third step that I'm going to give you is going to help you if you're more logically driven, which, hello, that's where I also am, okay? So I also want you to make sure that whatever feeling comes up for you, you allow yourself to feel it, that you don't repress it, suppress it, like push it down, because from my experience, and the science has proven this, when we do that, it actually it can manifest a lot of times as physical symptoms, as pain, as illness, as fatigue, as mental stress, as all kinds of stuff, right? Anger will come and go. Sadness will come and go. All of the emotions are fleeting. Like if you think about the last emotion that you had, how long did it last? Even the worst fight that you had, that singular point of emotion, even though it may have felt like it lasted for days and days or weeks and weeks and months, I guarantee that it ebbed and flowed. That it wasn't a continuous, nonstop, all the time, 24/7, hitting the max, right? That it would go in and out and in and out and in and out. And some days it might have been a 10 out of 10 for the 3 seconds that it showed up. And other days it might have been a 2 and anything in between. And the reality is that when we recognize that those emotions are just energy in motion and we allow the energy to move through us because we, in a healthy way, get to emote, right? That when you're happy, you express your joy. When you are sad, you allow yourself to cry. When you are angry, you can go and, go punch a pillow or go scream in your room, throw a tantrum like a 2-year-old. These are all very healthy ways of you releasing that from your body that we are then told as adults, don't do that. That's bad. Who are you to do that? Why are you crying? Why are you getting so mad, right? And then we can't communicate our needs because we don't know how to tap into those emotions that are showing us that there's something that has been unmet. They're placing demands on us. Well, if you ignore those demands long enough, they will scream for attention in unhealthy ways. Ask me how I know. So allow the energy, whatever it is that's coming up as a result of you recognizing like, oh my gosh, like I did it again. Don't beat yourself up. Allow yourself to be disappointed. Allow yourself to be sad. Allow yourself to feel whatever it is, and then let it go. You get to choose, because the more that you put your thought back on the same situation, right? So if I had allowed myself to recognize, oh my gosh, I played small. That was so dumb. I can't believe I did it. Oh my gosh, why did you do that again? And every time that it came up, I started that whole conversation, it would have made me feel so much worse, like 1,000 times worse. And yet every time that I did that, like, because it still showed up. I'm not going to say like the things that make us feel like we're small. It's not like all of a sudden they just go bloop, disappeared. Would that I could. It just happens faster, right? And so when it showed up, then I get to decide, am I going to close the door on that and just say, no, I already dealt with that. And then choose the new path of, so what do I do instead? Because then I'm reminding myself, Here's how I've decided I'm going to respond. Here's how I play bigger, not smaller, as a result of what I've just encountered and experienced. Number 2, I want you to take small steps. Now, I've mentioned this on lots of my videos, but it bears repeating because when you are going through a stress response, because almost always you're going to be triggered when you play small, because you're going to want to shrink and hide, that means that your body is going through some kind of cortisol, adrenaline response, and it's thinking about survival. When we get pressured into these situations where we have to think, am I going to die? Do I go this way, this way, this way, this way? There's very, very little resource left for you to think coherently and to do anything productive. And so in order for you, because I don't know at what point you're going to wind down, right? Because if you're really wound up and your system is really jacked, then there may be other things that you need to do. But right now, the very productive thing that you can do, if you still want to challenge what you've done and get back on the horse, so to speak, be gentle with yourself because you know you best. But if you're ready to move forward, I want you to take it small. Take a tiny itty bitty step, like the smallest thing that you can imagine. Okay? These small steps add up. You're going to still stack the deck in your favor. But the more that you put off doing in the direction that you want to get into, right? Like that you were starting to move into, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I got to shut down. I got to play small. Yes, that God expects for you. That you see for yourself, even if it's a tiny, small little whisper, where maybe you're seeing evidence of it because somebody else is doing or living the life that you want to live. Maybe somebody is talking about the topics that you want to talk about. I want you to start thinking, how can I move a tiny, eeny-weeny step in that direction? Does it mean that maybe you start, so I'll break it down as far as like what I had to do for videos. So remember, I said I was challenged Friday, and then okay, so the Lord's gonna ask me to give some numbers to provide some context, okay? So I'll do that at the end. So somebody remind me if you're still on here and I don't get to that point, because I wanna make sure that I do remember, but I still have a point here. So I needed to create daily content because that was a challenge that I had held my held myself accountable to. Blah. Okay. So for me, I needed to make it super simple and easy. And as a result, it was to go live. Now, that might feel like a really big thing, but I've gone live consistently on IG for quite a while. Like I have an established audience, even though it's not super huge, but it's definitely bigger than here, right? And I know more people, so it's more comfortable for me. So that's where a tiny step forward for me was, I'm gonna go where people already know me. I'm gonna go where people already like me. I'm gonna go where people already trust me. I'm gonna go where a lot of my clients already are. For me, that was Instagram. Okay, now, could I have run all the way back to Facebook, which is where I built my online business? Sure, I could. But that small itty bitty step was enough for me to create a perception of safety, security, knowing, comfort, right? So that I could still expand and do what I had challenged myself to do, which is I'm going to create content daily. I didn't have to go live, but again, my brain, it was difficult to even write something because I tried to write a newsletter, an article, and my words just got all jumbled. And so I knew immediately, okay, I can't play small and allow myself to do nothing, but I'm going to at least allow myself to do something that I'm much more comfortable with. Okay, I've just been practicing going live for 30, 31, 32 days. So the habit of going live was already ingrained. So it was much easier for me to keep going than to stop. That's what I want you to think for yourself. What's a teeny tiny step? And if you need examples, if you have questions on that, you add them in the comments and I can help you brainstorm, okay? And then number 3 is to remember who you are. Remember who you are, remember whose you are, own everything that you've already done. Because when you are reminded of the things that you've already overcome, the things that you have already accomplished, and if you sit down and write out a list, because sometimes we forget, sometimes we get just so busy with our day-to-day life, and especially if you are a parent, if you are, managing or taking care of any loved ones, and you're kind of at their beck and call a little bit, then they don't appreciate the stuff that you've done in the BC time, which is my shorthand for before children, right? They don't care. They don't care that other people think X, Y, and Z about you, or that you've accomplished A, B, and C, or that you have sold hundreds of millions of dollars, as the case may be. They don't care what your bank account balance looks like as it relates to, can you buy me some new face cream or my shampoo, right? Like they don't care about any of that except for maybe what's for dinner tonight. So of course, that's why Jim Rohn says, like, we are the sum of the 5 closest people to you. If the 5 closest people to you are your loved ones, your friends, your family, and they have nothing to do with the thing that you're doing in your actual business or your job, whatever it is that is producing your ability to take care of them and yourself, then of course, it's no wonder that when you then challenge yourself to do bigger, better things and strive towards a brighter future, that all of a sudden it's going to feel like the doors are slamming down, because you've probably forgotten about the fact that, hey, way back when you did all of this stuff, and it is some great stuff. And how often do we look at a resume? How often do we look at our entire life experience and the totality of that? If you're anything like my client, it's like once in a blue moon. So today, right, I want you to start writing down all of your experiences, especially. So if you are in the like slump, this is going to be a more impactful exercise. If you've already done that and you're like, okay, I feel pretty good, I'm on pretty solid footing here, Susan, but I want to challenge myself because I know 2025 and beyond, there's going to be bigger and better opportunities. I want to create that, and I want to not be able to say no to the things that are coming my way simply because I don't feel prepared, or I don't feel equipped, or I don't feel deserving or worthy of that attention or that time or the resources or the money or the contracts or the clients or whatever it is. I want you to then focus on every single day identifying what's one thing that you did that you're super proud of, that you know has aligned to who you are, the character of who you are. Because it doesn't always have to be a dollar amount, a new contract sign. Those are all well and good too, right? You don't have to ignore those. But I think sometimes, especially as business owners, that we focus so heavily on numbers and results and data that we forget about the quality of the activity, the quality of the result, the quality of how we feel in the moment or the interaction, or the fact that we showed up for ourselves, right? And so that's why today I am much more proud of the fact that I have still consistently showed up for myself and honored my commitment, even though it was difficult. And even though I was still processing some things that needed to be processed, learned, and experienced, and I'm still processing them because my life is such that I'm not done, right? Like, I will be triggered. I will be, re-traumatized or whatever we want to call it. And I get to decide, just like you get to decide, what's going to be my reaction in that moment and how am I going to respond, right? And so that's what I want you to consider for today is, if you are tired of playing small and you know that you actually are deserving of playing a bigger game, then I'm going to challenge you as a result of today's conversation. Why aren't you? And are you letting somebody else's opinion, who frankly, they don't matter? The only person that has to live your life is you. It's you. You're the one that has to look at your face every single day, all day long, should you so choose. But every day you wake up and only you know the totality of your experience. Nobody else knows anything more or less than you. And what you choose to share is up to you. You don't have to share more or less of what it is that you're comfortable sharing. That is up to you too, right? So don't let other people tell you how to live your life and how to run your business, even if they've paid you, even if you paid them. Because sometimes we feel like our clients are our masters because they pay us, and vice versa. If we have paid, an expensive consultant or a guide, a mentor, somebody who we're asking for information, and they give you advice that is completely contradictory to what it is that you innately, intuitively understand to be true for you. Because again, you can't give them the totality of everything that you've ever experienced and all the stuff that you know about you and your business and your clients. They only get a small snapshot. Hopefully, it is comprehensive enough that they can give you some wisdom and guidance based off of their own understanding. But at the end of the day, you still get to choose whether or not you're willing to take their advice and if it's going to be helpful in this moment for you to move forward, right? Don't think that you don't have the power and the control to be able to do that for yourself. That's why we play small, in my humble experience and opinion. Okay, so let me just see if you have any questions. Happy Tuesday. I'm fairly certain that Tuesdays will be one of my live days here on YouTube, unless we got family stuff. But I'm gonna put up a schedule somewhere. Okay. You agree with the mindset view, DA. It's hard for me to focus. Thank you for your kind. I appreciate you all. Okay, cool, Goku. That's one thing I don't struggle with. I'm always overconfident. I am so happy for you because that's probably something that, I don't know if you teach that, you help people with that in your business, but if you don't have a business, that might be something that you can help people with, because I'm going to say, in working with a lot of different types of clients, that confidence is something that a lot of people, especially high achievers, often struggle with, because sometimes achieving bigger results is to hide a lack of confidence, right? And then we rely more on competence as opposed to anything else. The bro was just trolling. Yes. 5'2". I'm 5'7". I understand. He is 6'2". Yes. Okay, so I don't see any more questions. If you do have them, please feel free to add them below. If you are watching on the replay, if you have watched on the live, because I understand it might be around the dinner time, putting kids to bed sort of hour-ish, because it's 5 p.m. Pacific at the time right now, and it's 8 on Eastern. And what does that be? It's like midnight or something if you're overseas. So we will be back. We, meaning me, it's a habit, I will say, okay? Probably to make my language more inclusive, but probably because for the majority of my life, there's always been somebody else with me. Like, I'm the eldest of 3. So from the time I was 2, I've had 2 younger sisters who trailed me like my shadow. I have 2 kids, I have a dog, I have a husband. There's very little time when there's nobody around. So I'm just used to saying we all the time. So Tuesdays for sure, I will be here live. I may do twice a week, but don't quote me on that right now. I know what I was gonna share. Thank you, Holy Spirit. So the last thing that I wanted to share, I am going to figure out how to edit my last video that was on here live. It was part of the 32 because it's a nice little recap, because I did my 5 biggest lessons from going live on YouTube for 31 days. That video, so I'm going to cut out the part that's not the lessons, because that's the only part that's really relevant. The rest of it was for me, really, right? It was for my own personal development. And so it will go in my archive so that I can see how could I have better handled myself even further? So that will be edited and added here. Now, the reason why, hello, Mod.org. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. I don't always know it because I'm human. And sometimes I don't. My biggest question is always, did this help somebody today? And I get it. People are triggered by the fact that I genuinely want to help people. And that's why I keep saying my purpose in life is to help others. And I know that it seems not very lofty because there could be other things like I want you to fulfill your greatest human potential. I do. I'm an activator. I know my calling. I know the roles that God has for me. I know how he calls me. I know the names that he's given me. But I still have to rise to the occasion and fulfill. You know what I mean? Like I still have to live it out. And I'm a human. I fail. I fail a lot. I fail way more than I succeed. But I always want my journey to hopefully not just inspire, but also empower you to keep getting up, right? And if I can be an example, for me, it's more, and I know this is selfish, and I've said it at the very beginning of this whole series, I don't want my kids, I don't want me, but I also don't want my kids to ever look back and say, my mom could have done that and she didn't. Like, I don't want them to ever remember me like that. And that's one of the reasons why my personal testimony about my health journey drove me, even though I didn't believe I could be normal, even though I didn't believe that I could be healed. I just didn't want to be living in pain because I didn't want my kids to remember me as the mom who only had pain. Like I didn't want them to constantly be saying, like, you're not going to be okay, right? And I'm emotional because I remember how that felt. I remember hearing their little voices at the age of 5 and 2.5, not being able to hug their mom because it literally broke me. It hurt so bad that I would scream. That when my son tried to horse around and play with me at a family vacation in Maui, and he threw me into, he was a little guy, 8 years old. He pushed me into the pool. I screamed. It was a pool full of people. They all left. Can I just say, because they had to pull me from the pool because I could not get out. I was racked with pain. And I was so determined that my kids, that would not be how they remembered their life with me. And so even if I couldn't get better, that at least I did not want them to remember me with pain. And that's the driving force, right? And so the lessons that I share here and the support that I give to my clients is very much from the lens of I'm an imperfect human that's got experience in things that I have done very well, but there's still lots of people who have done way better than me in terms of how to sell, how to build businesses, how to heal and take care of your health, like all of the things, even like my belief and my faith in God and my understanding of biblical principles and wealth. But the combination of how I've combined that and how God has allowed me to put these pieces of the puzzle together, my own little Rubik's Cube and how I've solved it, that's unique to me. And I do own that. But if you cut me, I will bleed and I will cry and I will hurt and I will take time to heal, right? So I share this because I want you to remember that you can still show up. How do I want to explain this, Holy Spirit? You don't have to have it all figured out. You don't want to be a hot mess express while you are in the midst of figuring it out. I don't encourage that because I think that's very traumatic for everybody else, which is why it took me these days for me to then be able to articulate how do I want to present this information, because now I've been removed from it. And although I healed right away, by the grace of God, my faith, my belief, and handing it over, right? The Bible says, cast your cares on him, which I did. But my human self was still needing to push it out, right? Like my human, it was still like, ugh. So the numbers, thank you, Holy Spirit. And I'll break this down probably in another video, because I actually am curious about sharing my journey specifically here on YouTube, because I think it might be helpful, especially from the lens of a, small-ish creator. And I have no specific strategy or plan. I'm just gonna go with the flow. And I'm not specifically talking about targeted business topics. My clients, and some have joined us on here, that it's very opposite of what I teach and what I do. This is a new season for me, right? And so I'm just gonna allow myself to be creative and to allow myself to play around. But that 5 lessons video on Friday had a ton of comments. I was overwhelmed. The other piece, right? Because I could have risen up to the occasion and created new boundaries on the spot, but my brain was not firing on all cylinders for me to do that. So I immediately could see, right? I try not to focus on the people or because at the top of my screen, it shows like the head with the number and then the likes with the thumbs up at the top. I try not to focus on that. Because the camera's up there and I try to make sure that it looks like I am not looking down here, although it's very difficult. I train myself to try and look there, but because I'm looking at all these things and looking at the time, and sometimes I get texts from my family because they still pop through even though I put it on Do Not Disturb, right? I could see these numbers and a thumbs up kept going up and I was like, what's going on? What's happening? So I had my notes down. I was trying to stay focused. I was super high vibey. Cool Goku, if you're still on here, Cool Goku was fan number 1, like join live. And I already had resigned myself to the fact that if nobody else shows up live, I'm okay. Because I got to get this done. I have a small window of time. I have my notes and I want to document this for me. I want to remember what this feels like for me, because it will never, ever, ever again be this first 31-day live challenge that I have done on YouTube. It never will happen again. I might do another challenge, but it's not going to be the same as this first moment. So I need to document this so I remember for myself what this feels like, how I showed up for myself, and what my lessons were. And so when Cool Goku came on and I was like, oh, amazing, right? Somebody I know going through, and the numbers went up and I could feel the vibe. I could feel the energy. I could feel the atmosphere, right? And then as I finished and I started talking about my own challenge, the new challenge that I had given myself, I felt a shift in the atmosphere. I should have known right then. I should have known. But I'm still learning this for myself, right? How to discern all these little changes and the subtle shifts and the move of the wind. And so by the time everything was said and done, my average views on a live stream on YouTube are about, it's going to vary, but about 40, okay, just from the live. Depending on the topic, within 24 hours, it goes to the max that I've shared on here is 190, okay, which is great. I mean, I have 247 subscribers. So if, I have zero expectations, honestly, because I don't know what to expect on here. This is a whole new platform. The way that I'm doing it is a whole new way. So the highest viewed video that I have is still around like, stop tolerating, what are you tolerating? Something like that. It's from early December. Had 190 views. Well, when I got off the video, the last of the series, there was 633 views. 633 views. So, just from a numbers perspective, that already 3x'd in an hour, my highest performing video as it relates to views. So I share this because I felt myself starting to shrink. I felt myself, even without all of the stuff that happened live, just from the numbers, I felt myself almost judging myself from the numbers and feeling like I couldn't meet the expectation of a bigger audience or more likes or more subscribers or more views, and like, oh my gosh, what if, what if, what if, what if? None of those were true, but I immediately could see that my brain was starting to project into a future, and it was catastrophizing, and it was making all of the things that I just experienced with all of the chemicals that were rushing through my body and my brain. It was starting to make me turn around and turn around and turn around, right? Notwithstanding the fact that at the time that that was happening, I had just prayed for, like at the beginning of the video, I had also prayed, just like I'm said at the very beginning of this, I'm going to pray for every single video, okay? Like it or not, too bad, that's my channel, that's what I'm going to do. But I had prayed for people to watch the video, but I also had made a comment or a prayer for the people in California. I have a lot of clients in California, I have a lot of friends in California, I have a lot of family members in California. And so amidst all of this, there was the storms, the firestorms, literally, right? If you've seen any of the fire tornadoes that have been going through. So there was already this like atmospheric shifts of all of these things, a turmoil that was happening here on planet Earth that very much I can feel, sense, discern, and see in the spiritual realm of what's happening, that were influencing some of the things. So it wasn't just a video. It wasn't just a person, a commenter. It wasn't just what the topic. It wasn't just the numbers. It wasn't just, it was all of it. It was like a perfect storm had collided, like literal perfect storm. And so because of all of that, I had to process, and I had to give myself permission to be gentle and to do what I needed to do in order to evaluate, assess, and not let the data and not let the numbers drive me crazy, because they very well could have, right? Make sense? And so the YouTube algorithm is crazy. I know. I have an idea of why specifically, right? God showed me a few things as well. And so it was being substantiated on that video and based off of what I discerned. But all this being said, don't allow your goals and your dreams, your desires to dictate and to define who you are, right? Because the point of this whole video is, yeah, don't play small, play full out, play a big game, but at the same time, don't allow the game itself, don't allow the rules of the game, don't allow the outcome and the scoreboard to define who you are and how you get to show up. Show up because you want to show up that way. Show up because it is who you are. Show up because it reflects the character, the nature of the very essence of you, the you that God created you to be. And that's what I want you to be able to take away ultimately from this. And then hopefully you have some practical, tactical school tips, right? Some strategies that you can implement where if you do the work, if you do the exercises, the reason why I can give you this is because this is what I actually did, right? Like I just walked through this, and I do this consistently because life is happening all the time. And if I want to get what I want out of life, then I have to squeeze the juice out of the lemon, right? So that I can make lemonade, as opposed to just complaining that I have lemons. And so now the ball's in your court to decide what to do with these tools, these skills, these strategies, and to hopefully use them in order to get the results, to get the dreams, to get the end result that you desire, and shortcut the pain, the frustration, the struggle, the challenge, because those are optional. Life is going to happen for us and to us, but we get to decide if it's going to improve or if it's going to stall and stop. And I, for one, am of the mind that everything is happening for us, Romans 8:28, for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose. And so that means that it's my job to look at, what is this trying to teach me? Why am I trying to play small? Where does this serve me to be little and to shrink and to hide and to not share? And who does it benefit aside from me? Because sometimes it benefits other people too, right? And if we can break some of those, then we're going to shift and transform. And hopefully, my hope and my desire, the vision that I see is a better future, not just for us, but for our kids and our kids' kids, because we have that power within us. And if so many of us just say, I give up, then everybody's going to say, I give up. And then we have a world that nobody wants to live in, right? It's harder. It's much harder to do it the way that I'm encouraging us to do it, which is we all take ownership. But the saying goes, many hands make light work. And so if many of us can connect together as a force for good, then I really do believe in the power of a collective good humanity that will create a force for change. And so those are the people that I want to connect with. Those are the people that I want to show up for. Those are the people that I want to know more about, so that we can all many hands make light work, so that we can make light of the work that actually needs to be done. Make sense? Okay. So Tuesdays, for sure we will be live. I don't know the schedule, but it will be on Tuesdays. And then I will look at one other day, because again, for me, routine is nice. And I will put them in my channel description somewhere. What else? I think that's it. Okay, so I'm going to pray for everybody. Because if you are on here live, because I think a lot of people do need prayer, and that's why I had said at the very beginning, I am going to consistently pray before and at the end. And you're welcome to pray however you want to pray or not pray. But I'm going to pray regardless of what your belief system is and where you are in the world. So Father, I just thank you. I thank you for every single person who has come under the sound of my voice, whether they were live or on the replay. I just thank you for this time. I thank you for the revelation. I thank you for allowing me to be a vessel that has been a force for good in this moment, Lord. If there is anything that I have said that has been taken out of context, or that I have said mistakenly, unknowingly, or knowingly, that has caused discomfort for someone, let your love go out like a healing balm and just heal them now, Lord. I ask for your mercy. I ask for your forgiveness. I thank you for your love. I thank you for your grace. And I thank you for an increase of faith, that whoever needs to hear this today, that they have been able to receive a measure of faith that will allow them to do whatever it is that you have called them to do. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Okay, we'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.